Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. So, you've got a big test coming up on manufacturing, right? Well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to break down one of the most important tools ever made, the lathe machine. My goal here is to get you totally prepped to ace that exam. Let's do this. Okay, so here's the game plan. We're going to start with the basics. What is a lathe? Then we'll get into the anatomy of the machine, its key parts. After that, we'll look at all the cool things it can actually do, the different types of lathes out there in the lathe family, and we'll wrap it all up with the key takeaways, everything you absolutely have to know for that test. All right, first things first, let's talk basics. What in the world is a lathe, and why do people call it the foundation of modern machining? Let's find out. Okay, get your highlighters out because this is the core definition you'll want to tattoo on your brain. The lathe is the oldest, most common type of machine tool. And the whole idea is actually pretty simple. You spin a piece of material, the workpiece, and you press a cutting tool against it. That's it. So simple, but wow, is it powerful. So let's dig into that working principle just a little more. The workpiece is spinning, right? And then you take a cutting tool, and this is key, it has to be harder than the workpiece, and you move it very carefully against the spinning part. What happens? It starts shaving off little bits of unwanted material, which we call chips, and just by doing that, you can create all sorts of shapes. Okay, so we've got the basic idea down. Now let's deconstruct this thing. We're going to look at the anatomy of the lathe, because once you know what each part does, the whole machine starts to make a lot more sense. So everything, and I mean everything, on a lathe is built on this super heavy, super rigid foundation called the bed. Think of it as the machine's backbone. Its main job is to keep things stable and stop vibrations, and sitting on this bed are the three main players, the headstock, the tailstock, and the carriage. All right, let's start with the headstock. This is really the power end of the lathe. It's what holds and spins the workpiece. Inside, it's got a bunch of gears that let you change the rotational speed, which is super important because you need different speeds for different jobs and materials. Now, way down at the other end, you've got the tailstock. It's got two main jobs. First, if you're working on a really long piece, it supports the other end to keep it from wobbling all over the place. And second, you can actually put tools in it. Things like drill bits, which means you can use it for operations like drilling or tapping. Super versatile. Okay, so think about it this way. The headstock makes things spin. But what moves the cutting tool? That's the carriage. The carriage is the powerhouse of tool movement. It's the whole assembly that holds, moves, and controls that cutting tool. It can move it along the length of the bed, straight in and out, or even at an angle. And if you look closer at the carriage, it's actually made of a few key parts. You've got the apron, which is kind of like the control panel with all the gears and levers for moving it. Then there's the cross slide, which lets you move the tool in and out at a right angle. And finally, the compound rest sits on top and can be swiveled to any angle you want, which is how you cut tapers. Now, this is a really smart bit of engineering and a great test question. To move the carriage, there are actually two different rods. You have the feed rod for all the normal, everyday movements. But for cutting threads, which requires extreme precision, the machine switches over to a special high-accuracy screw called the lead screw. Why two? To protect that super precise lead screw from the wear and tear of daily use. Clever, right? Okay, we know the parts, we know the principle, so what can you actually make with this thing? Let's get into the fun stuff, the operations. So here's a quick rundown of the most common jobs you'll do on a lathe. You've got facing, turning, taper turning, threading, knurling, which makes those grippy patterns, and even things you do on the inside of a part, like boring and drilling. It's a long list. Let's talk about turning for a second, because it's probably the most basic, fundamental lathe operation. It's simply moving the tool parallel to the spinning workpiece. And what does that do? It reduces the diameter, making a smaller cylinder. If you need to make a pin or a shaft, this is how you do it. And remember that special lead screw we just talked about? Well, this is where it comes into play. When you're threading, the machine uses that lead screw to perfectly time the movement of the carriage with the rotation of the part. That perfect synchronization is what lets the tool cut a perfect screw thread. It's all about that timing. Now, you might be thinking all lathes are the same, but that's not the case at all. There's a whole family of them out there, each one kind of specialized for different jobs. Let's meet some of the most important members of the lathe family, the ones you'll definitely need to know. Okay, this is a big one. Engine lathe versus turret lathe. Think of the engine lathe as your classic all-purpose workshop machine. It's super versatile. The turret lathe, though, that's a whole different beast. It's a production machine built for speed. Instead of one tool, it has this big hexagonal turret that can hold up to 6 different tools at once. This means you can switch between operations like bam, bam, bam without stopping. It's all about mass production. And there are a few others too. You've got your speed lathe, super simple, really high speed, mostly used for things like wood turning. Then there's the bench lathe, which is just a small version you can put on a workbench for tiny jobs. And, of course, the king of them all today, the CNC lathe, which is completely computer-controlled for insane accuracy and automation. All right, deep breath. We have covered a ton of information. So let's boil it all down to what you absolutely, positively must know. If you're cramming for that exam, this next part is for you. Pay close attention. Seriously, screenshot this slide. This is your ultimate cheat sheet. If you can remember these 5 things and what they do, you're in great shape. Let's run through it. Headstock is for rotation and speed. Carriage is for moving the tool. Tailstock is for support. Lead screw is only for threading. And the turret is for rapid-fire production on a turret lathe. Got it? Good. Let's end with this quote here, because it really gets to the heart of what a lathe is for. It says, a lathe is used to produce 2 things: cylindrical surfaces, round stuff, and flat surfaces, which are just flat surfaces. And that's really it. Pretty much every single complex part you make on a lathe is just a combination of those 2 basic shapes. All right, one last thing to leave you with, a little pop quiz. Let's say a factory has a massive order. They need to make thousands of identical parts, and each part needs 6 different operations done to it, one after the other. Which type of lathe would be the absolute best choice for that job? If you know the answer to that, then you've really been paying attention. You're going to do great. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.